Right, thank you very much. Welcome to the Planning Committee for October. We have a number of apologies of absence. Theo Buck Philip, Evelyn Stacey, John Petrinos, Dr. Mike Kelly, and I believe that Mr. Dean will be withdrawing from the consideration of item 6.1. So the burden of responsibility will lie heavy on those of you remaining. Okay. Are there any other apologies? No? Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest or lobbying of members or unaccompanied site visits that anybody wishes to declare? Mr. Holton.
Mr. Chairman, I did advise Roy Richards, who is the applicant on 6.1, about planning some 20 years ago, but we both agreed that a lot of water has gone under the bridge, so I needn't withdraw from this application.
And Mr. Dean, would you like to formally state your interest in item 6.1?
Yes, Chairman, I formally declare my interest and withdraw from the meeting for that item.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hockley, anything? Mr. Bray? Mr. Smith? Mrs. Nicholson? Mr. Elson? Right, thank you. Mr. Dean, just turn your microphone off. Thank you very much. So, the minutes of the you don't have to go yet. Minutes of the previous meeting held on the 2nd of September have been circulated. May I take them as a true record, please?
Yes.
Seconded. All in favour? Thank you very much. Any matters arising from page 1? Page 2. Page 3. No, thank you very much. Right. Item 4 is business of urgency, but I am not aware of any. Item 5 is public speaking. I will call our public speakers to speak in connection with the item when it is directly relevant, if that is okay with everyone. So item 6 is development management, and we are going to consider item 6.1. So Mr. Dean, if you would withdraw now, please. And I will ask Yvonne Dale to present 624925-003, proposed conversion of redundant Methodist chapel and schoolhouse to one principal residence dwelling and reinstatement of former miners' cottages to one affordable local needs dwelling at Mineswood, Easley Mill. Right. Mrs. F.
Thank you, Chairman. There are updates to this report which I will go through before summarising at the end of my presentation. The presentation includes slides and photographs of the site. Given that members have read through the report, I do not intend to go through that again. As explained by the Chairman, the application, in simple terms, proposes one principal residence dwelling and one affordable local needs dwelling in Heasley Mill. Heasley Mill lies on the south-western edge of the National Park and not far from North Malton. The application site is outlined in red. As you can see my mouse, this is the chapel, and the proposed location for the local needs dwelling will be in here. This plan shows the wider context of the site and its relationship to the other properties in Heasley Mill. This plan shows the position of the ruins of the former miners' cottages, which are over here. You can see my mouse, but they're here, in relation to the existing chapel, which is here. And you can see just here what the site levels would be in relation to the chapel and cottage. This plan shows the floor plans and the elevations of the proposed dwelling and the conversion. Plan also shows the parking spaces allocated to each property, one for the miner's cottage and two for the chapel, alongside the existing access and driveway. This plan shows the drawings of the existing chapel. It's constructed with a natural stone exterior, a natural slate roof, timber frame windows and timber doors. This plan shows proposed changes to the chapel. The proposed external changes to the chapel include the addition of 7 roof lights, a double door in the north-east elevation and two stainless steel flues, together with the introduction of a mezzanine floor and staircase providing 2 bedrooms. The external alterations to the chapel are acceptable. However, proposed mezzanine floor takes the floor area of the chapel considerably over the 93 square metres allowed through policy at approximately 128.7 square metres. The proposed new build local needs affordable dwelling would be a 2-storey dwelling, have a painted render exterior, a natural slate roof and timber doors. The proposal also includes the use of aluminium framed windows. The new build dwelling would have a floor area over the 93 square metres allowed through policy at 97.2 square metres. The size and materials of the new dwelling in this context, where the buildings within Heasley Mill are predominantly traditional in their design and appearance, are not policy compliant. The new build dwelling has a floor space that exceeds the policy limitations. There is no basis to consider that the new build dwelling needs to exceed the policy limitations. The photograph of the existing chapel. Planning permission was granted in 2011 for the conversion of the chapel to a local needs affordable dwelling. This site with planning permission was purchased by the applicant. In the meantime, the authority have been approached for other alternative schemes at the site. This photograph shows the roadside elevation of the existing chapel. This photograph shows the area adjacent to the chapel where the ruins of the former miners' cottage are located. This photograph is a view of the ruins taken from the road. It is very difficult to view the ruins because they are obscured by existing vegetation. The updates since the report was published are as follows. South West Water are happy with the method proposed to discharge surface water. North Devon Council Environmental Health and Housing have commented that they do not have enough information to determine whether details submitted address sufficient foul drainage provisions. 4 further letters of representation from neighbouring properties have been received, including 3 new properties, and raise the following concerns in addition to those previously raised and contained within the officer's report. These are concern as to whether the dwelling would be truly affordable. 3 double bedrooms, all en suite, and an office with its own entrance does not look affordable. The proposed construction would drastically alter the nature of such a small and characterful Exmoor hamlet. Some cutting back of the area intended for the new build local needs dwelling seems to have already occurred. There is a lack of parking spaces. Surface water runoff from the development would have nowhere to go except straight into the village. This would be made worse through the removal of the vegetation. The risk of flood-related loss and damage is likely to increase. All the windows will overlook Heasley Cottage Garden. Removing an ex-National Park ruin would be devastating to the history of the hamlet. The application for the chapel conversion should not be dependent on the application for a new build local needs dwelling. They are the updates. To conclude, it should be noted that the applicant purchased the chapel with planning permission to convert it to a local needs affordable dwelling, and that repairs to maintain the building do not require planning permission where they do not materially affect the external appearance of the building. The proposed development is contrary to the local plan and its housing strategy. The application site lies in the open countryside for the purposes of the spatial strategy of the local plan. Heasley Mill is a hamlet with a village hall, and the local plan considers it to be a rural community. Rural communities allow self-build local needs affordable. The proposal approach seeks to deliver a principal residence home without being in a village or local service centre, or delivering 2 local need affordable dwellings as required. The agent indicates that it would not be viable to convert the chapel to a local needs affordable dwelling. No substantive evidence has been submitted to demonstrate that the cost of conversion prices quoted are accurate or relevant to the specific site or building. No detailed viability assessment has been provided to demonstrate the cost of the scheme or the building's condition. Additionally, no open book assessment has been submitted to demonstrate that cross-subsidy is required. There is therefore no basis to consider that the site could not deliver 2 local needs affordable dwellings on their own. There have been other buildings within the National Park that have been converted to local needs affordable dwellings. Members may recall from the Schedule of Section 106 agreement in the past year or so, the old workshop at Brompton Regis, Ben Twitcham Cottage and Lower Cleve Barn, for example. The old workshop is completed and occupied. Despite the agent's claim, without any detailed assessment submitted, it's very difficult to see that the conversion of the chapel would not be viable. Moreover, without the assessment evidence, it is very difficult to see that the scheme could not be local needs affordable. Therefore, no substantive evidence that a policy compliant scheme delivering both dwellings as local needs affordable has been provided. Both the converted chapel and the new build local needs affordable dwelling would exceed the 93 square metre floor space contrary to policy HCF2 and forms part of the basis for the reason for refusal 1 on page 26 of the report. The proposed use of aluminium for the windows in the new build local needs affordable dwelling is contrary to policy CEF6 and forms part of the basis for the reason for refusal 4 on page 27 of the report. Adequate parking provision is not proposed, and it is considered that the proposal would prejudice road safety interests and would not accord with the relevant local plan policies and forms part of the basis for the reason for refusal 2 on page 26 of the report. The third reason for refusal relates to the need for a Section 106 agreement to be secured to accord with local plan policies. Despite the acknowledged benefits, the proposal would fundamentally conflict with the development plan when taken as a whole. The positive factors considered cumulatively, even if an element of affordable housing would be provided, do not indicate a decision other than in accordance with the development plan. There is no dispute the proposal does not comply with the relevant local plan policies, and whilst the agent seeks to argue this, there are no material considerations that would allow a decision contrary to the local plan. Officers have considered that those considerations put forward, either individually or cumulatively, are not of such weight to indicate a decision should be made other than in accordance with the development plan, particularly where no evidence has been submitted. Consequently, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms Dale. So we have 4 public speakers in relation to this item. The first is the representative of Exmoor Young Voices, which on this occasion is Mr Silverlock. Mr Silverlock, come to the microphone.
Do you mind if I don't sit, Mr Chairman?
No, not at all. We'll have 2 minutes.
I've got a bruise. I'd like to say it was from horses, but in fact it was from Dalberton's wonderful squash court last night. I'm here representing Exmoor Young Voices. Megan Hunt asked me if I would come to speak on their behalf. They've been supporting this project, particularly this piece of land. In fact, it's arguable to say that Exmoor Young Voices encouraged Roy Richards to think about using that piece of land for a self-build project. It makes complete sense that that should be a self-build local project, and Exmoor Young Voices wants to continue to support that. As far as the chapel's concerned, having mentioned riding, I ride past it, and it certainly wants finishing. We never understood how it could be outside the curtilage of the village, although that would probably include an awful lot of village halls on Exmoor. So it makes sense to probably pay for the self-build local needs cottage by finishing the chapel from our point of view. And that point of view is informed by the fact that in order to have a house on Exmoor, even in Dolverton, you need a salary of £50,000 and a deposit of £50,000, which is obviously outside the possibility of any young workers on Exmoor. And while I'm mentioning young workers, that's why this old person is here speaking to you, because they're all at work. If they're going to survive on Exmoor, that's where they need to be. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Silverlock. Our next speaker is Mr. Eric Lay. Mr. Lay, you know the form. If you could come to the microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
Apologies for bringing along a common cold, Mr. Chairman. But, I tried to leave behind, but no avail. Chair of Committee, first a little bit of history. When this chapel closed, another one shut only a mile away, across country, at a location known as Mullen Cross. Two very similar buildings, the only difference, one being located just inside the park boundary and the other just outside. Fast forward a quarter of a century, what do we have? Mullen Cross Chapel is occupied by the next generation of the original occupants. Heasley Mill has had 5 new dwellings. And believe it or not, 2 miles inside the park boundary, a gentleman's residence has been built without a shred of planning permission. Whilst Heasley Mill Chapel has only been saved from collapse by the diligence of its owner putting a new roof on in the nick of time. On the 23rd of July, I invited myself along to listen in at a site visit arranged by Dean Kinsella with the applicant and your committee vice chair. The striking thing on arrival was that a substantial part of the roof was on the verge of collapse. After a long discussion, the 2 ex-chief planning officers agreed in outline on the plans which are before you today. Dean now insisted on one condition, that the applicant spend some money and renew the collapsing section of the roof before autumn. Because of the substantial cost and no guarantee attached, I was amazed that the applicant agreed to it. I mean, I had a bit of experience of the planning system. In fact, under 5 different local plans, I learnt at an early stage it is impossible to draft a plan to cover every eventuality. So I take you back to your planning training and the 2 key messages which hopefully you remember. The planning service exists to facilitate sustainable development, and the requirement to determine applications according to the development plan.
Mr. Lay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you've had 3/4 of a minute over your time, so if you could bring
unless, this is an important bit, Mr. Chairman, unless there are material considerations to indicate otherwise. I am aware of 2. To prevent the loss of an of a heritage asset and securing an affordable dwelling which would not otherwise be possible. You're very much in a last chance saloon here, and to salvage something worthwhile from what has been a 25-year disaster. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lay. And very good to see you back.
Sorry?
Very good to see you back, even with the cold.
Oh, yes. A few fresh faces.
Yeah.
1 or 2 never change.
For good or ill. Thank you very much, Mr. Lay. Our third speaker is Mr. Milton, who is speaking this afternoon, I think, as the District Councillor for Heasley Mill. Mr. Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be quite brief because I wasn't going to go into the very attacking planning policy or applying to planning policy. I think Mr. Lay's already dealt with that, and and the specific circumstances, I'm sure, will be dealt with by Mr. Richards. I just was to highlight to members that this has been an ongoing situation for a very long time and discussion. To my mind, there are just a couple of thoughts I'd like to put in front of you. First of all, you've got the opportunity here to facilitate the provision of an affordable dwelling within the Exmoor National Park boundary. It will be cross-subsidised by principal residence in this case, but that principal residence, to my mind, is affordable by virtue of its size and scale, and its very limited ability to extend in any direction whatsoever, which would probably mean it would be accessible to the local community for a very long time to come from a perception of affordability. Regarding the local plan, the material considerations and discussions there is the opportunity for debate among members, and it's entirely down to you. The evaluation of the weight placed on the material consideration is a subjective evaluation on each person's evaluation of that local plan. So it's up to members, I would ask, to look carefully at them and determine how you look at that. There are just a few bits. Right at the very end, I noticed that in the final paragraph it was suggested that on balance, for the reasons above, the proposal is not considered to comply. It always concerns me when that word's put on place. I didn't expect to see on balance, which would tend to indicate to me there is an opportunity for debate there. And a debate into whether there is enough weight within material considerations that you can determine it viable. Within that, it is an opportunity to retain two buildings that are there, one of which is the existing chapel, which is quite a substantive building, and the other, to my mind, a non-designated heritage asset, which is the virtually invisible ruins, but it would perpetuate potentially a legacy for that non-designated asset, in that there would be an affordable dwelling in perpetuity on that site for the future, which has to be of some value to the community. I would just ask that members look at this carefully, please, during their deliberations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norton. Thank you. And finally, we have the applicant, Mr. Richards. Mr. Richards, if you come to the microphone, you'll have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
I bought the chapel 12 years ago. Being naive, I did not think the affordable home type was so restricting. The first visit with Joe White explained a affordable home type devalued it by 40%. This would leave me in negative equity. After another meeting with Kieran Rees, it was suggested I could put a plan in forward for a holiday let as a part of a farm diversification. The park then responded with 6 reasons for refusal, so I withdrew it. As the committee recommended, I have had lengthy conversations with the Exmoor National Park. Dean Kinsella and Mike Kelly at a site visit, he had the idea of making the chapel into 2 affordable homes. I suggested making the 3 miners' cottages into affordable home and the chapel into a principal residence. We agreed that was the best option, but I must repair the roof immediately to stop any further deterioration, which I have done. The other thing I do ask, how can 2 planning officers have such a totally different view of what should happen to the chapel? Although not a settlement in the local plan, Eastleigh Moor is nonetheless a community for purpose of the local plan. The site is part of Eastleigh Moor social history. The chapel and the schoolhouse are together registered historic assets. It is believed one of the earliest Methodist chapel in the area. Heritage assets are noted in the agenda report. Great weight should be afforded to the conservation. After many years of trying, the present application provides means to do so. Loss of the remains of the miners' cottages would be inevitable over time. The use of the site for an affordable home with original character kept would seem a good solution. The overreaching policy HCS1 sets out that any housing within the national park is only permitted on exceptional basis where it addresses identified local needs for an affordable home. Through cross-subsidy, the present application meets this justification, as it would deliver an affordable home with established community with a need for local needs affordable home. The chapel has been empty for 15 years, with a Methodist and Bilgine trying for 15 years, and then I was trying for 12 years. Trying to tell you, after 27 years without solution, perhaps the Exmoor National policy is wrong. But the bottom line is that I have 2 children that do not fit the affordable home type, and 2 stepchildren that do. None of my children own their own house. I want to provide a property for them and for them to live locally. I would ask the committee, would they saddle their children with between £400,000 and £500,000 worth of debt to build 2 affordable homes, when I can actually go to North Malton and buy a house for £230,000 without an affordable home type?
Thank you, Mr. Richards, very much. Thank you. So, thank you to our speakers for their eloquent contributions. And it's now time for the member debate. So, who would like to open up the discussion? Mr. Gray.
I'd like to ask a question for clarity. I think I know the answer, but I want to be sure. This has been classified as being in open countryside and not in the village. I think I know why that is, but could you just state that? Mr. Welch?
Jimmy, thanks. Well, Heasley Mill itself is essentially open countryside under the housing strategy. What Heasley Mill does have, though, when you look at a self-build, there's a policy in the plan which allows you to do a new build, self-build in a rural community. Because Heasley Mill has some facilities, it's a rural community, it is nonetheless still open countryside. So you can do a self-build, local affordable dwelling, policy compliant. Okay, the issue comes from the principal residence. Both would need to be affordable.
Thank you.
Is there anything else at this point, Mr. Brown?
Yes, I really see this as quite a challenging application, I guess, what's in front of us. And I can see why the officers have come up with their conclusion. And I can see it really does challenge the policy in a number of areas. One which you just talked through, Joe, in terms of the fact that this is classified as open countryside, and yet this chapel would have been sent to the village at one point, with the community. In fact, my dad even went to Sunday school there. You know, my dad walked there. It would have been part of the village. So now we're saying, no, it's not. It's open countryside. And I know why you're saying that. But again, I'm struggling with that a little bit. So yeah, I think then it's classified as not a vacant property because it's not in village, I believe. And then the third one is the affordability discussion. Again, I'm struggling with that, and I can see that the affordability. I know I've had the report recently, read the report about affordability, and that comes from the market value side. But when you look at the cost of converting that, there are 3 pages on the ecologist report regarding any development. There are 2 pages from the senior heritage officer. So they're things the developer has to deal with. I mean, one is hedgehog ramps, any ditch dug. They're all costs, let alone the cost I can see of obviously the roofing's been done. So I can see the cost of converting that would be greatly different to a standard property. So yes, I can see the many policy challenges, and also going forward, you look at the property and the heritage of it, again going back to the Methodist Church, one of the earliest one, is a really important cultural heritage for that area, and Paracombe had one, and number there in that area. And it's been vacant for 25 years, which sort of implies no one's seen a viable way forward to develop it. And how do we deal with that in the park? If it doesn't get developed, will it deteriorate? And therefore is an opportunity to work, I'm sure we have though, the developer to find a way forward. So yes, I'm struggling in those areas. I know there's some minor things about the foul drainage, I'm sure that can be dealt with. The ruins of the Miners' Cottages versus the Methodist Church. I think the Methodist Church has a lot of cultural heritage there. So yes, I can see it's a challenge, and the policy, whether it's clear, I'm not sure, but it indicates that this perhaps shouldn't be approved. But as a member, I'm struggling because we want to retain that and develop it, and what's being put forward seems a sensible compromise. Principal residency of was 128 metres squared. Doesn't seem massive. Bigger than, I think, other national parks got to about 100, don't they, 120. And then the other property, 97, is just above what we restrict to. So again, they're all just outside the policy. But I can also see the need, particularly when the applicant refers to their children who go to North Moulton outside the park and buy property substantially cheaper, which obviously adds to the affordability discussion in terms of if someone were to try and buy that property. So, yes, I'm not aware of any. I've not been involved in the history of the planning on it before, so I've come new to this. So I'm interested to hear other people's views, but I'm struggling with it right now.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Ray. I'm going to ask Mr. White just to comment on some of those points, if that's okay, and then I'll take on them.
Thanks, Jim. A really important point to make here is it is part of the rural community. Okay, so a policy compliance scheme would be to convert that to a locally affordable dwelling. Okay, so the benefits that stem from that would come from a policy compliance scheme. Okay, a lot of the issue here comes down to this argument around viability. Okay, and it's then how much weight to put on that. There is no dispute between the parties that this does not comply with policy. There's more detailed elements in terms of why it doesn't comply, but fundamentally it doesn't comply with the housing strategy of the local plan. Okay, that's a big issue. Okay, so that is something that the law requires us to turn the application in accordance with. Okay, unless other material considerations indicate otherwise. That's not a get out of jail free card. We have to be clear, it's contrary to policy. There's considerable harm in that because we're talking about the fundamental approach under the housing strategy. Okay, then when we're looking at material considerations, we're saying they all principally stem from this argument around viability. We need great care around that. What we don't have in front of us is any detailed viability assessment. We have figures plucked out of the sky, we can look at an ecology report, but actually none of that's been translated to this site, to this building, to what that would mean. Plus, it's also needs to be borne in mind that both dwellings are proposed as locally affordable dwellings. Okay, as self-build dwellings. That has implications in terms of viability. Okay, as Yvonne has said, there's been other buildings in the national park that have been converted on a self-build basis. That to me definitely indicates that in the park you can do that on a viable basis. Okay, that's fact, that's there. Okay, that's helpful. Now again, that doesn't necessarily translate to this. So you might have a difference if there was a detailed assessment there to have that view. But we are clear that people do self-build, new builds, as on the miners' cottages, or conversions within the park. Okay. The big concern here for me is that we're looking at these other material considerations. The weight to be applied to them, there needs to be robust evidence there for us to be able to put firm weight on that. There are numerous other traditional buildings on Exmoor, okay, that we are as officers dealing with, okay, and the concern here is that if we're not careful, we undermine the whole approach of the housing strategy and what happens in the future. I would much rather be tested at appeal on a scheme like this than through a committee today. It is clear what the housing strategy says, and no one is disputing that. The comments around the vacant building, okay, we have to look at the wider public interest, not the interest of an applicant, okay, and the fact that they may have been in ownership of that building for a number of years. I'm aware, obviously, there has been a previous refusal, okay, but there's only been one previous refusal. There's been some other applications that have been withdrawn. We have this application here today. That's not been tested as appeal, okay. There's plenty of other sites where a building stayed in someone's ownership. We're not aware that the market's been tested, okay, as a locally affordable dwelling. Okay, it's obviously purchased as a locally affordable dwelling, but we've heard from the applicant that that actually didn't meet his circumstances, so it hasn't come forward. That doesn't mean to say that it wouldn't suit someone else who would meet the local need affordable housing criteria. That's really important from the officer's point of view, again, because that comes back to what we are trying to do under our housing strategy and the houses which we're trying to deliver as I say, the benefits of converting the historic building would come from a policy compliance scheme. Okay, that's really important to say. Thanks, Chairman.
Right. Thank you, Mr. White. So I've now got Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, like Mr. Bray, I when I went through this a couple of days ago, I found myself sort of, almost lost in a labyrinth a little bit, and I think that's coming across strongly with all of us. You find yourself thinking, oh, you should be able to do this. It's a conversion of an existing building. That's great. So we can do. Oh no, because of that. Oh, but that means you could do it as a self-build. No, because of that. Oh, but you could if it was an affordable needs dwelling. Yeah, but then it'd be two of them. And that's before we get to the area issue. Although I think if we're getting out to the issue of 93 square metres to 97 square metres, well, crikey, we'd be happy with that discussion. So that I think is definitely something about this, is that we find ourselves really creeping through our policies here and trying to work out partly the intention of the policy, what was the spirit of the policy, and what's the spirit of our housing strategy. But the trouble is, eventually we'll have to come back to the word of the housing strategy, and I would say if we were following the spirit of our housing strategy, to gain an affordable needs dwelling, to bring an old unused building back into use for a dwelling, would, on the face of it, definitely be part of a good housing strategy. That's what a housing strategy would mean, right? Is bringing houses back into use and building new properties. Unfortunately, the policy doesn't appear to give us that route through the labyrinth to actually get to that. And that is a problem that I'm still hoping that someone else can help me with. But in the meantime, and this maybe is partly for this case, but also clarification perhaps for any that might come up, and just apologies if this is because I'm not reading the plan properly, but just to help me understand. So under CES 6, on the conversion of existing buildings, if I just want to sort of isolate that for a minute, am I right in thinking that any conversion of an existing building, forget whether the dwelling is affordable needs or not at the moment, just simply you're going to create a dwelling, right? Am I right in thinking that the dwelling must fit within that 93 square metre limit? That seems peculiar because, of course, if you're converting an existing building, you can't actually control the space of it, so that would be rather strange. I could see it's very big, you could create two buildings out of it, I guess, but what if you could only create 1.5? That would seem to be a bit odd. So I just wanted to, can I just have an answer on that particular point? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, when we talk about conversion buildings, the starting point was 93, okay, but if we look at the floor plan here, we're dealing with the building that's already there. If the building, as it stands, is 96, 100 square metres, you would convert that space, okay? It just so happens, so in this case, take a measurement on the plan here. I've got the wrong cursor, that's why, sorry. I was using the wrong mouse. The ground floor, so where the cursor is down the bottom here, the internal measurements on that ground floor is about 93 square metres, okay? So that's quite straightforward, that's policy compliant. As soon as you then start adding additional floor space, so you're going up to a first floor, you then lose that benefit and say, well, we're working within the four walls, because what you're doing is subdividing the space to create more.
Okay, thank you. That's what I suspected, because therefore we're in the situation that if we did create this as an affordable needs dwelling, but didn't put mezzanine in, and just then what you'd be basically creating is a volume that you couldn't afford to heat. And is that right?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's different ways to insulate buildings and put in ceilings.
But we'd accept that we'd be creating an interesting space, right, with a very, very high ceiling. And yet we'd be calling that an affordable needs dwelling, which I submit would be eccentric. But we're in danger of criticising policy here. What I want to do is clarify the policy, so that's fine, we've clarified it, that even if you're converting an existing dwelling, the design that you're using for that dwelling should not fit what would be suitable housing, it must fit the 93 square metre limit, because that's in the policy. No ifs, no buts.
Well, would it be fair to say, Mr. White, that if it was a little bit
with one side or the other, bearing in mind it's a conversion, that would be fine. Hearing what you're saying is the mezzanine puts it very significantly over the limit, and that is the issue. Yes.
Okay.
So in terms of the floor space.
Understood.
And I understand what you're saying about a large volume potentially, although Mr. White says you could stick a ceiling in it, but potentially it is a large volume, and that large volume will have to be heated, but what we don't know is how it might be insulated, what the heating arrangements might be. That's the sort of thing that we can't really comment on at this stage. All we can consider is the planning application before us, which shows, as Mr. White says, something that is of some considerable distance beyond the plan.
Understood.
Is that right?
Yes.
Does that make sense? I think that's how I'm reading the discussion.
No, I follow it.
Okay. Mrs. White.
Tom? Smith? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm kind of similar to the other speakers, pulled in two different directions with this one, because obviously to provide more affordable housing in the park is for me something I would very much like to see, although it does seem to be contra to some of our policies. A couple of questions. If this was developed without the mezzanine, would that be acceptable? And then under permitted development, like, do you have to have planning permission to put a mezzanine in the future? So that's one question. The other question is, if it's affordable housing now, and obviously it seems like it's going to be affordable housing for the children of the applicant, does it remain as affordable if they want to sell this on? Does it have to have that for the future? So would it be at a set price, or however that works? So could you just explain that one to me? I think that's all it is for the moment, but there might be other questions later.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mr. Wise, Mrs. Denton.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I just want to start by saying that the scheme, a policy compliance scheme, would deliver two affordable dwellings. So you would deliver more affordable dwellings if you do something that's policy compliant. Okay, that's an important clarification to point out. If the scheme was for a 93 square metre conversion, or worked within whatever that ground floor space is, around the 93, that would be policy compliant. You could think, and we're not there, are we? We're not trying to design something different, but you might think about whether you put restrictions in place about future extensions or tunnel alterations to buildings that were necessary to protect the size and the existing housing stock. And it would need to be a locally affordable dwelling in perpetuity, and that would be in accordance with the local occupancy criteria under our local plan. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in two minds as to whether to say anything, but I thought in for a penny, in for a pound. I feel very much the same dilemmas that everybody else is feeling over this one. Particularly, I wish to encourage self-build as a way forward for those people who want to make their lives here and want to house themselves and be as independent as they can be. But I see all of the policy questions which have been raised and answered, and I note what the various speakers have said. And I have, I think, two questions. One of them is very much about affordability. And it's in the discussion from the senior heritage officer.
in Heasley Mill there are already elsewhere listed some miners' cottages. So we know what they're like. We know the way they were built. We know as much about them as I think we can know. I therefore find it very questionable as to whether there is anything else to be learnt from doing what would be expensive archaeological investigative work and other work on cottages which have already changed from being two-storey miners' cottages to be a single-storey mono-pitch roof mid-20th century, which clearly and so what we've got is sort of floor level stuff and potentially underneath the undergrowth little bits of wall. I find it hard to think, given that we have in that community of a similar date already listed, therefore preserved information available to the world, that it would be appropriate to put conditions onto any permission that might be granted in relation to these houses to not add to the knowledge that we already have. So I do question that a bit. And my other question is about the weight to be put on the cultural history of the area. One of the things which is open to the applicant to do is just not to do it, just to realise that there's a sunk cost fallacy somewhere in all this and just stop spending any money, at which point the chapel falls down. That is the loss of a potential affordable local needs dwelling. That would be the loss of. It would also be an irreplaceable loss of the cultural history. And I am puzzled as to what weight to give that in my thinking.
Right, thank you. I don't know if the officers wish to comment on any of those points Mr. Sutton proposed.
Only really, Chairman, it's just, it keeps coming back to the viability, ultimately, isn't it? Because if the scheme can be delivered, we get those benefits. You know, the chapel gets the reuse. Okay, that's preserved in the longer term. So as I said beforehand, there's no basis from the officer's perspective to believe that those benefits can't be achieved by a policy compliant scheme, which gives you all the benefits, because you still also get those two locally affordable dwellings.
Okay. Right. Yes, Mr. Hockley.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm having trouble as well as everybody else. I think there's two things here. Logic tells you this is the way to go. We're in danger of losing a historical building here. You can't see the ruins at all. So by making that into a primary dwelling house, it's got to be a benefit for the community, and obviously it's a property for somebody to be living in. But I think we're battling here between logic and policy, aren't we? Logic tells us it's a good idea, and policy says you can't do that. And I think that's where the struggle is. It is with me anyway, because I think it's a good idea.
Right, thank you. Well, I think all members are conflicted. It's clearly come across. Mr. Horton.
As there are so few of us, I must say something. And my saying is to ask a question. It's been pointed out that there has been no substantive evidence to demonstrate the cost of conversion prices make it unviable. The question is, if there was such evidence, what would that change the officer's recommendation? And if it did change the officer's recommendation, should we not be requesting that this be deferred until such time as a substantive evidence can be brought forward?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, the evidence is in front of us, so I think it's very difficult to say what a decision might be from an officer's point of view. I don't think that's a fair thing for us to sit here and, that's not in front of us. That would need to be looked at properly. You can ask yourself that question ultimately, couldn't you? Bearing in mind that it'll probably end up in front of this committee again. But that would have to be, I think that would be something we could place more weight on than we currently can, okay? So as a material plan consideration, if the evidence is more robust, I think that allows you to place more weight on it than you could currently. Whether that weight would be sufficient then to overcome the conflict with policy is a matter of debate. Just trying to get the second part, Jeremy. Oh, I guess that's for members to decide. I mean, from the officer's point of view, we've been at this application a little while. We have gone back to the applicant. There has been opportunities to provide it. Part of me would like to say, well, look, we can draw a line under this application. Within that, if it is refused, there's options to appeal. There's also the option to resubmit with evidence or do both.
Do you want to come back, Todd?
I was just, apologies, I was just thinking if I was sitting in the position of the applicant or his agent, what I would do, and I think I would stop and think that another month or 2 months' work might sort this one out.
Just remind me, if should it be that the application is refused, and the applicant then comes back with further information, is that something that can happen within the existing fee structure, or will that be a wholly new application and a whole new set of charges?
It would be a new application, then it would generate a new fee.
Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. I was going to raise the issue about the foul water runoff a little bit, because there was a concern raised about that and the impact on that one. And the kind of feeling I'm getting, though maybe not everyone is getting the same feeling, that we are minded to perhaps go against what the officer is recommending or maybe even defer. There is a mention about aluminium windows. I mean, that could be a whole new planning discussion for us, whether we do or we don't accept aluminium windows. And can you just clarify aluminium windows? I mean, are they UPVC covered aluminium, or are they just plain aluminium? I don't know enough about windows to say whether it's wood, aluminium, UPVC, but I know we've had long discussions about PVC windows. So there is that, but I do think there is a concern about the runoff, etc., and with having an additional development there. But for me, I think the fact that we would gain 2 affordable houses really is pushing me in that direction, rather than going with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Well, yeah, the thing is with aluminium windows, it's one of the issues which an officer has raised as a concern. So, if it were deferred and the application comes back, I mean, from the officer's point of view, the issues are set out in the papers. They are still issues. They will need to be resolved, or there will be matters for debate if the application isn't determined here today.
Can I just come back?
I would just add, Mrs. Smith, that when the application was submitted, the windows were timber framed, and during the lifetime of the application they were subsequently changed to aluminium framed. With regards to the surface water runoff, one of my updates was that South West Water were happy with the method of discharge, so foul drainage, no, but, oh yeah, sorry, it was surface water. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. It's just we've had in previous discussions about the additional cost of wooden windows, etc. And would that then not make this even more or less of an affordable property if we were talking about, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 wooden windows of that fancy kind of design, rather than straightforward square ones, etc. Although maybe that's not what we should be considering.
Chairman, the aluminium windows would be in the new build. I mean, again, the issue around viability is a very difficult one, I think, to answer. All I can go back to is, you know, the experience from officers shows that in the national park, people deliver self-built, locally affordable dwellings with traditional materials, okay? Which to me says you can do that on a viable basis, okay? Thank you.
Strawson. Thank you. Yeah, leaving the windows aside, because of course we have approved applications with aluminium windows, and so it is not beyond the realms. Our policy admits that actually technology is changing, appearance of windows is changing, and we should of course be updating in order to take care to that. So I don't think that's going to be the big sticking point here. But I suppose coming back to Jeremy's point about deferral, I suppose the issue is I can see the merits in that. However, my question would be whether the applicant was given an opportunity to provide the evidence to show viability, and was that at the point where they would have known and seen and been able to include the costs of the ecological survey and the heritage survey, because as the heritage officer said, this is in quotes one of the rare circumstances when the site is fully recorded to allow the development to take place. A rare circumstance, so not something that happens every time. It is not something our policy demands, it's something that has been recommended. And it sounds to me as it could be quite expensive. So I think my question really is, if the applicant was given an opportunity to provide evidence to show viability, or inviability, if you like, of doing two affordable needs dwellings, and did that viability survey include all those costs that are implied by the officer's report and the conditions? Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, we've had detailed discussions with the agent about the concerns from officer's point of view around the basis material considerations. Nothing has been provided. We also sought to encourage a change to the scheme to have something that was policy compliant. The elements around recording historic buildings, ecology, that may impact on viability, okay, but that may be an argument to say you do less on that to ensure you deliver something that's policy compliant in terms of housing strategies. Okay, that's where I think you could look to have a greater basis to argue some flex, but still deliver something which is delivering locally needed housing, okay, housing which we need in the national park, which is not only supported under the local plan, but also under the national planning policy framework. Okay, so yeah, you could look at the viability and you could say, right, we need to do less on the element of detail here, because the key is we're going to deliver two locally affordable houses. Okay, so that could be a discussion. My concern is, though, from an officer's point of view, is whether that will move us forward in terms of application. You know, I can see us being here at another time and we're still going to be having the same type of discussion with a number of the issues still outstanding. Okay, and you know, what deferring it does, it doesn't give the applicant any certainty. Okay, they would then need to decide whether they wish to pursue or how they wish to pursue it, if indeed they do. Okay.
Right, there is nothing on the table at the moment, but I sense that what you're edging towards, ladies and gentlemen, is perhaps a deferral to require further detailed information on viability, whilst acknowledging, and that would be a material consideration potentially, but we acknowledge that the principle of the square meterage would be the principal consideration nonetheless. Is that, broadly speaking, where you are?
Yes, I mean, I don't want to engender an argument about square meterage at this stage. I'd just be looking at the viability.
Well, I think it's only fair to note that that is a significant material consideration.
I am aware of that.
Yeah, but nevertheless, the point that the officers have been making about the square meterage is perhaps the most significant area of policy that is being challenged. Would that be fair?
Yeah, the square meterage impacts on cost as well.
Well, yes, that's true. So, Mr. Gray.
Can I come back on another point?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, the viability, I know we are considering what's in front of us, but it was suggested from what Dominic said, is that if that was not this one, the chapel, if we go back to the chapel, and the chapel's got wooden windows in, so there's no discussion on that, is there on that? If that was one level, 2-bedroom, affordable house, that would be acceptable. Am I right then that it would be 40% discount off market value still? So when we've got to think about viability, it's knowing what the market value would be. So then I'm thinking in my mind, would that even be viable then? I know we said insulation is costly. So I can see it becomes viable as a principal house, 3-bedroom, but if it became 2-bedroom with 40% discount on market value, again the viability becomes so crucial, isn't it? So I think yes, that more information on that viability is going to be important. From as I stand now, I would say it probably isn't, but I'm just going from my knowledge.
Well, you're prefiguring the discussion we might have later if you do want to go in the way of deferral. Anything you want to add at this stage? As I say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm always slightly reluctant about deferrals. Because generally speaking, I would say it's probably better to have a refusal than a reapplication. But in this particular instance, partly because this particular site has been under consideration for so long, I think it is probably worth the last gasp effort to see if we can get to a point where something may be achievable. I'm very mindful of what we said as quoted on page 26, which we said in 2019, 6 years ago. But I think that probably is still very true, heartened by the applicant's desire to work with the planning officers, but urge both parties to work together proactively to make the best use of the opportunities that exist in order to secure the future of this site. I think that's, broadly speaking, where you are all at the moment. I'm sure that's what we want to achieve, but I don't think we can quite get there today. So I think, if I may, I'll propose from the chair the deferral, then further detailed information on viability. Members, yes, seconded. Can I see all those in favour of that? Right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that will be deferred. Officers will go away and have further discussion with the applicant and his agent, and then we will revisit this at a future meeting. Right, thank you very much. Mrs. White.
How long is this deferred for? Is there a set? Is it 1 month or 2 months?
I think that I'm slightly reluctant to put a time limit on it because it may take a little while to get that information together, and there's no point in it coming back to us not with the full information so that we can make a proper decision. But Mr. White, does it need to come back more quickly?
I don't think we need to come back more quickly, Chairman. I think we want to come back when we're in a better position to come back. I mean, we haven't had a discussion with the applicant or the agent yet in terms of whether they wish to pursue it with viability information or not. So we need to have those discussions. Yeah.
That's great.
Will this also give time for the applicant to deal with some of the smaller issues like the foul drain, get that cleared up? And also maybe aluminium windows. If that was wooden windows, make it easier for us. Car parking space, because I don't know, is that opportunity? But that's up to the applicant, I guess.
Chairman, from the officer's perspective, the more issues we can remove from the table, the better. So we will try to get to a point where it's as good as possible. It isn't policy compliance.
All right. Right, so that stands deferred. We'll have a 2-minute pause so that our public speakers may leave, if they wish to, but they're very welcome to stay for the rest of the extremely exciting and exhilarating meeting to come. Thank you very much.
Take advantage of the 2 minutes.
there, and having to say to them where they've got actually what's extremely important to build this great two-star listed building, which, because you can build it into an affordable home, but that very year, it becomes difficult. Thank you. I'm not saying you would change it, but you need that
something we're aware of. With something perhaps you can address without any emphasis, or maybe without meetings over, is where are we on feedback and the local plan and all that, because that is a worry. We're increasingly sitting behind it.
You see, Bristol got Freedom Church. I was just talking about this. Even though it's south of here, there's plenty of sites. Indeed, very close to Zim. You are still if we keep the same housing strategy.
Just that.
Yes, back.
Fran, I do apologise. I don't know why. It must be your super blonde hair.
It must be super white. And Andrew's just gone for the...
You come with?
Oh, I'll be back in a minute.
Well, I think it was probably the best one from you.
But that's not the American
Sandy Way, which is out near here.
Oh, I missed it. Put your finger on what you're way through the...
Well, then, I agree, no challenge, and then you have your judgment on. But no,
make the decision. Yes,
Okay, shall we move on then, ladies and gentlemen? So we're now on item 6.2. Welcome back, Mr. Dean.
Thank you very much.
Hope you enjoyed your rest.
I've had a lovely time. I had a cup of tea downstairs. And
You're just ruining
I hope you've been working hard in my absence.
So we now come to application 62 41 25 007, application under regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992 for the proposed erection of an extract unit and vertical flue on the rear elevation of the pavilion at Lynmouth. And this is going to be presented by Mrs. Dow.
Thanks, Chairman. So the red line, which is just there, you can see my mouse is like that, indicates the application site, and the pavilion is located on the esplanade facing the coast. This plan shows the location more clearly, and the extract unit and flue relocated to the rear of the building. I apologise, I missed that there is an error on page 36 of the report in relation to the proposed measurements. The proposed extract unit would sit approximately 1.7 metres above the floor level, not 3.2 metres, as indicated in the report, and the flue would extend approximately 2 metres above the top of the extract unit itself, not 4 metres, as indicated in the report. I have a slight problem with my 1 to 50 and my 1 to 100 scale, it seems. When I was rereading my report, I was like, 4 metres, that's quite tall. So 2 metres and not 4. Be akin to the lighthouse. The proposed extract unit and flue are located to the ribbon, as indicated by the red cloud, and will replace the existing internal ventilation equipment. This is a photo of the front of the pavilion, taken from the Esplanade. It's a photo of the rear of the pavilion building. The yellow outline denotes the approximate location of the extract unit and flue. The scheme is judged to be acceptable as set out on page 40 of the report. On that basis, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers. Members?
So proposed.
Right, so proposed by Mrs Nicholson, second by Mr Hockley. Does any member wish to comment at all? Mr Wilson? What colour is the flue?
Steel colour.
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel, excellent. I just wanted to check that it was going to match other flues of a similar type.
Stainless steel rather than black?
Yeah. We could have it black if you'd rather.
Well, looking at that,
That one's black. It's not proposed to be painted, but we could have it painted matte.
well, matte black would probably stand out rather less than shiny steel.
This area is quite sensitive in
Yes.
that a lot of people walk between, you know, having done the Cliff Railway would like, yeah, it is a very popular walking space, so anything that is less in your face would be better, and I think a black
Is it
colourway
possible
would
to
be better.
condition it being matte black?
Yeah, I propose that condition.
Right, thank you. Well, we'll add that condition then if everyone else is...
I think you can get black flue, can't you?
So, anyway, proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Mr Hockley. Are you happy with an added condition that it should be coloured matte black? Right. In the absence of any other discussion, all those in favour? Any against? Thank you very much. That brings us to item 7, application decisions delegated to the Chief Executive. And we will, as usual, take these page by page. And Mr White will comment as we go along. So, page 1. So, the refusal, number 3, Hangers Way Dumpster.
Yeah, there's floor space issue or floor space increase problem with that one, Chairman, but the revised scheme is now submitted, so that follows discussions. So, hopefully that's okay.
Cruise Cottages, Bridgetown to Exbridge Road at Exton. Bottom one.
Yeah. Chairman, this is a proposal to replace a dwelling. The dwelling itself is a non-designated heritage asset. And the proposal came about because it's in the flood zone. So we wanted to knock the dwelling down that was there, put a new dwelling in its place, but with more flood resilience measures in place. Given the significant historic significance of the building, we're a bit like hopefully less intrusive measures could be carried out. And now we refused the application on that basis, but now we're in discussions to see what might be able to done to the existing building to protect it from flooding and safeguard it as a non-designated heritage asset.
Right, that sounds reasonable, thank you. Mr Bray?
Just like saying, pleased to see the extra events and things being improved. Obviously, a local decision.
Flooding and
Yeah.
It's just condition.
Okay.
It's just a condition, yes, but
anything else on page 1? Page 2? page 3. So the second one down, refusal at West Lynch. Mr. Building Consent.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the works would have removed the historic fabric around the window, which would be harmful to the historic character and appearance of the building. So we weren't able to support that, but Thomas Thurlow's in discussions.
And the bottom one on that page, with the all-flooring, new dwelling and garage.
Yeah, this is it's another dwelling on that holding, but the case in support of it was good. It's a big concern. They got over 2,000 ewes, 30 spring calving cows, but they also contract rear cattle, 150 at the minute, and the intention is that they would increase both the sheep and the cattle rearing business if they were successful with the dwelling. So, so it's a big concern, and we felt that the dwelling was justified.
Mr. Brown.
I missed the West Lynch, the installation of French doors. Was that because of the material being proposed?
That was more to do with removing historic fabric around the window, which we think could be retained. And then, we don't need to lose it.
It might have been an alternative approach.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and on the final page, halfway down, well, actually, do you want to take the second one down, maybe?
Just remind myself.
Whistlewind?
Yes, I think this was just one where they actually were able to demonstrate that they had been in breach of the occupancy condition for a number of years. So the application was granted on the basis of the evidence.
Okay. And the next one down is the new house self-build?
Yeah, no, it's a good scheme to be able to grant planning permission for. This is one in Cutcombe for a lovely affordable dwelling. It's a sort of freestanding self-build with an outbuilding as well, and tick the boxes on the policy, so we were able to grant permission.
Good. And the one below that was withdrawn.
Yes, can we talk about the withdrawal to the wall?
Yes.
Yeah, there's not too much to say about the application other than to reflect that it was withdrawn. And
is the name familiar?
I don't think so.
Right. Okay.
No. It was. I think it's on the market, and I think these people looking potentially to purchase the property.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Any expanding you'd like to do?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, other than I think what everybody knows, it's there. It's on the market. I mean, I don't think there's. I think it's. I don't think it's under offer anymore. Is ultimately the issue, and that's why that's been withdrawn. So.
One at the bottom, Exmoor Society moving back into 34 High Street.
Funny for words.
Well, I was just wondering why the existing metal fire escape can be removed. Are there other fire escape provisions above and beyond?
I believe so. I don't know for sure. Only from the point of view that would be a matter more for the occupiers as opposed to the planning application.
Okay. All right. No, just curious.
Accepting that wasn't it there because the upstairs is a dwelling?
Was a dwelling.
Has it been given permission not to be a dwelling?
Change of use.
I think the officers might need to go away and just advice. No, I'm just curious because it's been a feature of that particular corner for a while.
I thought it was a requirement because upstairs was actually a flat.
It was,
Yeah.
And hadn't actually ever changed from being a flat. But I may be wrong on. I may well be wrong on that.
I suppose we're not
It
building
was
for
definitely
trouble.
a flat before the Exmoor Society purchased it.
Well,
The
then the
previous
Exmoor
shop
Society had
owners-
only just purchased it.
So the previous shop owners used to live in the flat.
And then somebody else purchased it and
And
let it to the Exmoor Society, which has presumably just bought it.
I believe so, but it was converted for their use some while ago, so it might well be more than 10 years anyway. So
We've still got the bathroom.
Fluid use.
Or at least
Well,
that's how I did it.
we members of the Exmoor Society like to keep ourselves clean. Okay, well, it's just interesting. It would be interesting to hear any more detail about it, just because it was a long-standing feature of that corner of Dalston. It'd just be nice to know, really.
Oh, nice one.
All right. That being so, site visits. Any site visits to be agreed by the committee, the reserve date being Friday the 31st of October. Well, we don't know that there are any yet. And I would also add that that is the last Friday of half term, and I know it will not be terribly convenient for some should it be a site visit day, so we may have to look at that if we need to have a site visit for anything, but at this stage I don't know if we do we? We do.
See that look? No. No, I don't know for certain. I mean, out of any month that we come up to, there is one on the horizon, but whether the next site visit date is too soon, it may well be. I will be more certain within the next week or two.
Okay. So hold yourselves in readiness then. There might be a site visit. Right. There being no other business then, ladies and gentlemen, I will declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Oh, could I just say I'd like to give my apologies for a meeting in November and in December. I won't be about for those 2 months.
Scandinavia?
Partly.
Testing the open access?
Yes, I am. Going to site visit. But I have spoken to Mike at Ellicott, and he will be
deputising.
Deputising.
Okay, well, as long as Claire knows that, that's fine. Right. Anything else?
Yes, I've just looked it up, and they did get change of use to offices.
There you are. So, what year did they get change of use?
2014, I should remember it.
Well, there you go. See, that's more than 10 years anyway. So, okay. Yeah. Thank you for informing us, Mr. Clifford. That's fine. The officers feel better informed now. Thank you all very much.